r/NoSleep. Posted by u/Sinisters. Return 567. They told me to go out and touch grass, but they didn't tell me it would touch me back. It started slowly at first, so slow that anyone not actively paying attention probably wouldn't have noticed it, but I saw very clearly the way the tall, overgrown grass that grew wild and unchecked in my spacious front yard swayed ever so slightly, as if reaching in my direction whenever I passed by it in the mornings on the way to my car, and took note of how the way it wilted seemed to reverse before my eyes when I returned in the evenings, as if my return caused the grass to become awake somehow. I couldn't point to an exact moment in time when all this began, though as I sit down to type this out after 7 long days and even longer nights without leaving my house, I'm acutely aware of how insane it must sound. But doesn't this awareness mean that I am in fact not insane? After all, truly insane people never question their own sanity. I've lived in this house since my childhood. My father purchased it from an old friend when he was in his 20s and kept it until his passing at the age of 65, shortly after he passed legal ownership of the place onto me. I can say with confidence that whatever is happening on my property is not a haunting. There is no sordid history associated with my house, no previous owners that died in unsavory ways, no blood-soaked scandals or dubious happenings that one could point to as the origin of a supernatural disturbance. I don't know if such things actually happen in real life, but what my experience in this house has taught me is that people often lean on such ideas to comfort themselves and to explain the unexplainable. To impose rules, regulations, and a measure of control on something that cannot be controlled. After all, if some malicious presence that infects a house is in fact of human origin, then it must have some measure of familiar humanity that can be appealed to, some unfinished business that can be put to rest so that the presence will relent and show mercy to those it haunts. It's a comfortable idea, but little else in my opinion. Tap. Tap. There it is again, the subtle tapping outside my bedroom window, quiet at first, almost like the bashful caress of a young lover trying to sneak in before the neighbors notice, before it rises in pace and volume and then starts to sound more like someone indignantly beating against the window demanding that I let them in, the force of each tap threatening to crack the glass until I rush over to the window with my gun at my side and pull back the curtain only to see an empty yard and an unusually tall batch of grass brushing against my window, that almost looked as if it was waving at me as it swayed in the gentle breeze of the summer night. Sometimes this will go on for several hours a night, and I've long since given up on trying to do anything about it. Tap tap tap. I plan to ignore it, to let whatever insidious force that was growing in my yard know that it had no power in my home, only to be surprised when my phone rang out in the darkness after an hour or so of tapping. I answered it absent-mindedly, glad to have a distraction from the strange phenomenon that now plagued my sleepless nights. "Hello?" I asked. "Won't you come dance with me, Hector?" a sickly sweet voice asked. "Who is this? I've watched you for so long, seen you sprout from a seedling and grow into what you are now, so handsome, so strong. Won't you come out and dance with me?" The voice was low and threatening, and almost sounded as if it was coming through clenched teeth. Tap tap tap. "Whoever this is, I want nothing to do with you. Never call me again." Tap tap tap. "Don't you remember how you used to play in the yard, Hector? How you used to run your fingers through my grass? I felt your warmth in my roots, and I knew that one day we would dance together. Won't you come outside?" Tap 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 tap. "I won't." After a moment or two of tense silence, the sweet voice spoke out again. "Your father can't keep us apart anymore, sweet Hector. All of you come from me, and all of you will return to me, eventually." Then the voice laughed, a genuine laugh, the kind of which is only made by someone who knew that they were in control, and I felt something sharp prickle against my ear, causing me to drop my phone, and I looked on in horror as tall green grass grew out of the phone's receiver. I haven't gone outside since then, haven't even left my room. My family and friends have stopped by a few times to check on me, but I always yell at them to leave from the window as loud as I can before they reach the yard. I know I can keep this up forever, but I don't know what else to do. As I type this, I can see the last rays of the sun fall behind the horizon, and I know what's coming, what's waiting in the tall grass. Tap tap tap. Next story of this video. Posted by u/Sinisters. Return 567. I think my Grindr stalker is a shapeshifter. When the telltale bing of a Grindr notification rang out from my phone in the late hours of the night, I initially planned on ignoring it. I hadn't been actively using the app in some time. After a few years of being catfished, ghosted, and just generally exposed to some of the most dismal examples of humanity the internet had to offer, I had resolved to never again meet up with someone from Grindr. But of course, as I lay in my bed unable to pass into the twilight realms of sleep due to insomnia for perhaps the third night in a row, boredom set in and I decided to see who was messaging me. I fully expected to open the message and be greeted by the sight of yet another grainy picture of a stranger's genitalia complete with terrible lighting and some crass invitation that would confirm for me once again that romance was long dead and in the grave, only to be pleasantly surprised by the sight of a guy who was actually really cute. He looked to be only a little older than me, in his late 20s or early 30s if I had to guess, with sandy blonde hair that cascaded past his shoulders and probably the most unique set of eyes I had ever seen. An exquisite example of heterochromia, a rare condition that affects the irises. One of his eyes was a dark violet hue, while the other was a deep ocean blue. His profile was simply named Shy Guy Looking, and according to the app he was around 20 miles away, and his message was straightforward and polite. "Hi. How's your night going?" I was pretty sure he was a catfish at this point, because I was never lucky enough to meet a real human who was this attractive on this app, but I had nothing else going on and decided that a bit of conversation would be harmless. So I responded with my own eloquently titled profile, and our conversation was more or less as follows. Chad Longwood 69, good, how are you? Shy Guy Looking, I'm alright, kinda bored. Chad Longwood 69, I feel that. What are you looking for? Shy Guy Looking, just some fun, and maybe more if you're interested. I definitely was, but I didn't want to come across as too easy and I wasn't even sure if this was a real person yet, so I decided to go along with the usual process I had for vetting potential hookups. Chad Longwood 69, you have pics? Shy Guy Looking, yeah. After a second or two he sent me his album, which was comprised of a few photos of a very risque nature that I will not describe in their entirety here for propriety's sake, though I will say that he had a wonderful set of abs and an intricate, almost arcane-looking tattoo of a snake eating itself etched across his chest that curled up to his neck that made me swoon. Against my better judgment my libido took over and my response was almost immediate. Chad Longwood 69, how soon can you come over? Shy Guy Looking, I can start heading over right now. Can you send me your address? Chad Longwood, of course. Shy Guy Looking, great. I'll be there in 15 minutes or so. My anticipation was palpable at this point, so we kept messaging as I made preparations for my late night guest, with each message from him coming from a closer distance as the app tracked his movement and the conversation steered toward the hot and heavy. Shy Guy Looking, 10 miles away, oh baby I can't wait to get my hands on you. Chad Longwood 69, oh yeah? What are you gonna do when you do daddy? Shy Guy Looking, 5 miles away, I'm going to split your belly open and spill your filthy, slippery guts all over before I peel the flesh from your rotten bones to feed the darkness of my soul. Chad Longwood 69, what? Shy Guy Looking, 1,200 feet away, your screams will be the sweetest melody, your agony a blessing from the gods of Gehenna. Oh how I long for the taste of your warm entrails on my lips. I don't think I've ever gotten out of the mood so quickly, and I told the guy as much. Chad Longwood 69, you know what? Never mind man. It's getting late and I'm not really into that kind of roleplay. Shy Guy Looking, 500 feet away, I haven't begun to play with you yet. Chad Longwood 69, I mean it dude, don't fucking come near my house, I've got several guns. Shy Guy Looking, 50 feet away, you think they'll save you? I blocked him immediately and went over to the nightstand by my bed and pulled out my .357 and loaded it just in case. I was definitely put off, but I was more annoyed than scared at this point because I figured he was just a weirdo that got off on being a creep and didn't actually have the stones to do anything until I heard a knock on the door that made my stomach turn. Bump bump bump. I made no motion toward the door at first, just stood there as still as I could with my gun leveled at the door, utterly flabbergasted that out of all the people I could have invited over from Grindr at this time of night I had to get the actual psychopath. I had no plans to answer the door, I was just going to stand there with my gun ready until the guy inevitably got bored and decided I wasn't worth the trouble when a familiar voice rang out from the other side of the door. Jamie? Jamie honey, are you home? It's Mama. I need to talk to you. No fucking way. I thought to myself as I slowly approached the door and responded without opening it. Mom? Is that you? What are you doing here? It's after midnight. I just need to talk to you sweetie, can you please open the door? Relief washed over me and I moved my hand to open the door when I stopped for a moment. Something wasn't right here. My mom lived almost 3 hours away from me and she never just showed up at my doorstep unannounced, especially this late at night. On instinct, I peered through the peephole to see if it was in fact her and was surprised to see that it actually was her. Or at least someone that looked almost exactly like her, from her sweet, pudgy face and her short stature to her salt and pepper hair. The eyes though, the eyes were off. In place of her familiar emerald green eyes were a pair of mismatched ones of violet and blue, and I could make out the tail of a snake tattoo curling up from under her collar in the dim porch light. I had no idea what to make of this situation, but I knew that hell would freeze over before I opened that door. "Jamie? Is something wrong? Open the door. You know I'm afraid of the dark." At the time I didn't think to wonder how it knew my real name. "Whoever you are, leave. I'm calling the cops." The thing on the other side of the door then broke into a wide, ear-to-ear smile revealing rows of blackened, knife-like teeth before it started beating furiously against the door, screaming at me with my mother's voice as it did. "Let me in, you filthy little tease. The blood gods are greedy and they demand an offering." Without a second thought I leveled the gun at the door and emptied the clip. What followed was the most inhuman scream of pain I'd ever heard in my life, like the cries of a creature from Satan's nightmares before whatever was out there slammed against the door with enough force to almost dislodge it from the hinges before silence fell over the house. I ran and locked myself in the bathroom while I called the cops and waited for what felt like 1,000 years before two uniformed officers came to greet me with guns drawn. After I dropped the .357 and raised my hands slowly and explained that I was the one who made the call, they put their guns away and carefully escorted me outside so I could make a report. As they led me out, I saw that the front doorway and porch area were covered in what I could only describe as a viscous black ichor that trailed through the grass and ended abruptly at the sidewalk. I deleted Grindr that day and never looked back, but my nightmare still isn't over. Even now, years later, after countless cross-country moves and even changes of identity, I still get messages from anonymous social media accounts that are all called some variation of Shy Guy, as well as texts from random numbers, asking if I still want to have fun.